Hello and welcome. Welcome to the video today. Thank you for being here. We have an interesting topic today, I think, and I think you all may think it's interesting too. It comes from a couple questions and a conversation really that I've been having on one of the other videos. And I love questions so much, and I don't always know the answer or necessarily think I have everything completely on track, but I love the curiosity and the exploration that comes with our awakening process and journey. These are questions that came from a video on light language. And I think it's a really relevant topic, and my sense is it's going to continue to become even more relevant. If you find this interesting, we can certainly go deeper. There's a lot of questions here that I'm going to touch on. However, you know, it's a pretty substantial and meaty topic, and if you all are interested, then give a like, drop me a line saying, yes, we'd like to know more, discuss more, learn more, and I will be happy to follow that lead. So thank you for everyone who have been liking and subscribing to the page. I really appreciate it. So let's just jump in. Thank you again to the person who has been inquiring. You know, inquiring minds want to know. And I tend to have an inquiring mind myself, and I really love sharing whatever I can to support you wherever you are at from wherever I am at. The questions center around light language, which is the way that I experience light language. And I have different labels, so to speak, that I will put them under depending on where I feel they're coming from, depending on the type of work that I'm doing, right? The sessions that I'm doing, the kinds of activations that I'm doing. They can be called soul languages, star languages, light language, and historically they have even been called, I think it's like songs from the spheres, right, or music of the spheres. It's not new. Light language is not new. It's just becoming more present because we are going through an ascension process. Now, what we can compare it to is charismatic speaking in tongues. This is what these questions center around. And what I want to say is that for me, in my experience and my understanding, is that these languages are a part of our spirit and soul connection to the divine. And they have a bandwidth of frequency or consciousness, so to speak. The questions that this part of our community is asking have to do with, is it the same thing, right? Is speaking in tongues the same things as light language? And why is it that oftentimes the Christian religious faction of our population, you know, of humanity, tend to sort of demonize other people speaking light language, and I think it's a great conversation, because once again it expresses the division, and really not just division, But there's so much that we don't know. We're knowing more and more and more as we go through this spiritual evolution. And yet, for me again, I always try to stay in that realm of curiosity, that I don't have the full picture. I don't know all of the answers. I might believe at certain phases and stages that this is true. And there were times where I felt like things were the absolute truth. But then the evolution continues, awakening continues, and the truths that I thought, it wasn't that they were no longer true, they just expanded into a bigger picture with more details and more, more nuances and subtleties to fill in any gaps. And I don't see that stopping anytime soon. Light language, and we'll look at that as known as speaking in tongues, goes back in history. And it is, it's even, we could imagine that this was what the Tower of Babel, right, had some connection to in the Bible. And there are many denominations within the Christian umbrella that have used speaking in tongues for many things, right? For communing with spirit, for healing, for knowing that God is present, all of these things. And yet other Christian groups who don't believe in speaking in tongues as being a part of maybe the divine way are divided against other Christians. So we live in this fabulous world of duality and polarity where division runs the reins. And that is because one reason we can say that it is that because we have so many different soul groups here that come to this planet to experience a wide variety of things. And they're not all going to gel. They're not all going to be coherent. So we have a wide spectrum, and we have a high and low density gradation of measurement. So when I'm saying density, I mean lower, denser consciousness, right? That is kind of weighted down by division, by judgment, by labeling, good, bad, right, wrong, up, down, right, black, white. And that too is part of our awakening journey. It's a starting point for many of us. When it comes to speaking in tongues, I believe that yes, it comes from the same divine source. And oftentimes, we could say that it is bestowed by grace. I believe that, yes, it's bestowed by grace, but I also believe that it's part and parcel of our soul blueprint. Now, I believe that everybody, has the capacity to speak light language, and that everybody, I believe that most of humanity, as time progresses, will be speaking light language. Partly why I say that is because light language is a unifying frequency. It's not of division. It harmonizes the brain, the nervous system. It creates coherence in our cellular structure. It upgrades our spiritual anatomy. It allows and supports our awakening and activates our awakening process. And more than anything, it connects us to the heart. Now, all of this might go counter to what the person who has been asking some of these questions is. Might go counter to that belief or to that understanding. So let's see if we can break this down a little bit. When speaking in tongues or light language comes in, it is oftentimes spontaneous. It just happens. It can happen where there is a deep level of devotion, where the heart is already prepared to purify more fully, and where we could say a soul is ready to move along their awakening trajectory. Now, within a religious setting, and this is gonna be like really generalized. I don't believe this is a black and white thing. Rarely do I speak in black and whites. Generally speaking, we might have people who are touched by spirit, who then begin speaking in tongues and allow the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, to work through them and to bring about great change and transformation in congregations. The thing about light language is that it is always trying to upgrade us and evolve us to our next highest expression of being. It in and of itself cannot, let's say, save us or make us be better, make us be more loving, make us be more harmonized. It can assist us, but we have to do the inner work along with it. We actually have to be co-creators with the divine. We have to learn and make the changes in our lives that keep us in density. So one of the things that I shared with this community member in the first round of questions was that when light language is coming through, it sort of gives us a peek into a higher expression of experience. Or we might have a grace period where, because it's communicating with our soul. And then our soul, and it is part of our soul. Like none of these things are separate or individual. Our highest self speaks the light language, receives the light language. Galactic star beings, right? Angelics. It's all part of this greater landscape of spirit, of God, of divine presence. So we're going to get a little window, right, where the light language will come through, or if I work with clients, they're going to get this beautiful healing opportunity. And then I always say, now, listen to your body for the next few days, or listen to your heart. Do whatever your body or your heart inspire you to do. Because that is the communication of these frequencies of divine consciousness that are guiding us from within to make specific changes, to uplift us, right? To heal us, to purify us, to create better habits that are more self-loving. If we do not, because we have free will, we can either align, I call this divinely aligning with what is coming through, and then following the inner teaching that will follow. Or we don't have to. If we don't know that our role, our conscious volition is a part of this process, then we might just hang out in kind of the same place. So I'm going to flip from this as light language into the charismatic traditions, right? And this is even, charismatic, Pentecostal, those Christians that work with snake, or serpent energy. There are Christians that work with, right, the snakes. And that's going to come into one of these other questions. So if we have the leader of a congregation, let's say, who is speaking in tongues, and there's ripples of this divine energy moving out into the congregation, and they are getting an opportunity. Now, some of them, they're probably receiving the energy as deeply as they are open and in devotion. Okay? Same with whoever is the channel for this. There has to be some level, in my belief, that their devotion and their openness is there, right? To bring this through, to filter out, to serve a community, to then up level. But if the channel doesn't know or understand this, and if the congregation thinks that this can only happen in the presence of the Holy Spirit during religious, communion and sermons, then they're not going to take steps or even know what to listen for or even know what changes to make. Now, some might, depending on their soul blueprint. So I hope that kind of makes sense in that little bit. If we don't know what it is that we're receiving, and then how to embody it and tune in to our own inner soul presence, we're missing a big part of the picture. And we may not see big shifts and changes. Now, how is it that there can be people who are channeling, and this doesn't mean just within the Christian or charismatic, traditions. People can channel light language, which is still a high vibe, right? It's still, in and of itself, it's carrying a high, loving, divine frequency. And there has to be some resonance, I believe, in the channel. But it does not mean that the channel has healed their own inner polarity or their own issues. Let's just say their own judgments, fears, ignorance. And when I'm saying ignorance, I'm not meaning that to be a put down, an insult. I'm using it as a state of consciousness. There is a lack of deeper or more expanded consciousness that has yet to take effect. And if we don't know or understand that this is part of why this is happening, we might stay in judgment. We might stay in fear. We might stay in a place of us against them. And it doesn't mean that the energy won't keep coming through to support, but we don't have the consciousness to make the changes, to do the inner work, to transmute our own darkness, right? And allow the light, the literal light of light language, okay? Literal light coming through in frequencies and vibrations that are adding to our biophotonic light in our physical form, that is upgrading our spiritual anatomy and our human body. So that's another piece of this that if you want more, let me know. I'll go deeper. Or maybe we'll do a large class, right? Maybe we'll just do a class on some of this. But let me know that that's what you want. So I'm going to look at this other question. So how can... All right, so this is in a way how a charismatic preacher can make claims against other denominations or other religions, period. Other cultures. There are many cultures that understand this concept on a deeper level, that go back in time. I'll say the yogic traditions, these are in part where mantras come from, and why the mantras or even the mudras, when they show up spontaneously without learning them first, right? They just run through the body because spirit is being embodied in us. And flowing through. Ancient cultures, I believe, understood this. They might have had different words and names and ways of talking about it. But if we aren't evolving consistently, then the light language or these codes of information they're not going to go anywhere. They're not going to force us and make us, because we have free will. So it's our job on this journey to engage consciously, this is what I talk about all the time, right? It's our responsibility to engage consciously in our ascension or awakening process. We can get light language. We can get, Reiki. We can get sound baths. We can get all of these things. And yes, we're going to get an experience from them. But if we aren't consciously doing the deeper work, our trajectory is going to be baby steps. And we're not going to really see or notice the difference. right? We're not going to necessarily have long-lasting, consistent joy, consistent peace, consistent freedom, consistent faith and trust. Like all of these they're the byproduct of frequency upgrades. And we become very different people. We are evolving, right? We are spiritually maturing into different qualities and expressions, and that gives us a very different personality. So this is why there can be that division, right? One against the other. Yeah, so it's kind of a couple of the same questions, right? How can we tap into the same source and simultaneously still be in judgment? This is because we haven't done our healing. So oftentimes, and not always, I think it's very common within a lot of religious doctrines that we are expecting to be saved rather than recognizing that the Christ consciousness, okay, is in us to save ourselves. Meaning, do the work, do the healing, right? Dive in to our own stuff, our own darkness, our own density, our own judgments, our fears, our dislikes, our angers, our rages, right? Our jealousies. All of these things are ours to heal. They don't just heal on their own. So many people in Christianity don't really do this deeper work because they're not conditioned to, and I don't think that there's a the awareness that, oh, I am responsible for this. It's like, and I use this example a lot, it's when Jesus heals the blind man. And he says, right, clearly, I will heal you, but do not go back and do whatever it is that you were doing that was part of creating this blindness. Now, whether this was literal, metaphorical, the blindness, I mean, he's stating you have work to do. So, so then he asks, is light language available to all without even understanding it? My answer is yes. And I'm saying that from firsthand because for myself, and I've shared about this in other videos, I had no idea what light language was. I had never even heard of it. However, I had a very deep devotional Shakti, meaning embodied practice, where I communed deeply, I mean for years, daily, for hours, and then for years, hours upon years, with the Holy Spirit in, right, Shakti, right, is the more Hindu or yogic word. Holy Spirit is the Christian word. And over time, I transformed, and then spontaneously, light language started pouring out through me. I had no idea what it was. I was a little freaked out by it. I was a little leery of it because I could hardly control it. But then very quickly, I began to be aware how much my frequency was lifting and how much joy was my first quality, right, that was being shown to me. And I was already very connected to my soul presence and how my soul communicated with me. So it was a very natural progression that then just expedited my evolution based on my working with the light language and honoring the teachings that were being brought down through me to bring healing, to bring transformation, to more than anything make me, because I kept listening, into a much more loving and compassionate and peaceful person. And part and parcel of that love came from light language taught me more succinctly how to love myself. So that's my personal story of it, and I have had many clients who, and people who, when I do group activations, who then go on to spontaneously speak light language. And that is part and parcel. I always say, I don't do this as much in the sacred pauses with the light language, and maybe I should. Just reiterate, when we're done, drink a lot of water so that it anchors the light codes into the body, and listen inside to your guidance. Make the steps, change the habits, change the behaviors that aren't serving you. Make higher level choices so that you can higher level your being. Because that's what we're doing through this ascension process. That's what this is all about, right? Becoming more awakened in love, as love, by love, with love, for love. And that connection with the divine on this planet. So ayahuasca, a lot of people will start, will either start speaking light language or will have experiences during their medicine journeys. And that's super common that it comes on automatically. So here's the last thing that I'm going to say about this is that the more that we're in, let's say, heightened devotional states, and we could say doing ayahuasca. I personally have not done ayahuasca, but any of the medicines that we do, they're going to soften our sensory gating, right? And the sensory gating is a part of the brain that helps to protect us from being overstimulated by the myriad of, energies, frequencies, vibrations, whatever you want to call it. We would be overstimulated if our brain were open to all of that. Whenever we use substances, it sort of softens the sensory gating. So what this can mean is that those faculties in our brain that are more highly attuned to spiritual experiences, such as light language, can be more receptive. And here's the thing. You can do an amazing medicine journey and take the wisdom from that, but then you still got to do the work. You might feel amazingly like, oh my God, I'm free now, and you might be free for a while. But if you haven't done the work, put conscious effort into it, it will still be there as density, as our woundings, as our stories, as our conditioning and programming. You can speak light language during those times. But if you're not continuing to be in devotion and in a heart space of love, then, and this doesn't even mean that, I want to just qualify that. It doesn't mean we're in love. We're living in love all of the time. And we might not even know the level to which our soul is already acclimated in its own blueprint to the frequency of love. But there has to be, in my belief, there has to be the element of love that is present in order to match the frequency of light language or speaking in tongues. But it can stay at a plateau as well. So, for instance, my light language will often change and evolve into new languages the more changes and transformations I go through. So as my frequency raises, as I continue to purify, as I'm living particularly more so now in this, places of divine neutrality and divine love, not emotions. It's a frequency and quality of divine expression that we're all moving towards. What comes through me changes. It shifts, right? There's new songs, there's new tones, there's new expressions because I'm accessing higher information. So I'm not staying in one place. So as I evolve, the light language continues to help me evolve, but I have to say yes. I have to divinely align. I have to release and let go, right? This is what we're doing. Releasing and letting go, dying away in order to be reborn into new expressions of who we truly are. We are remembering, and light language helps us to remember our divine soul presence. Now, I'll say one last thing, and I've said this also, but I'll just say it here. Everybody who speaks light language is going to have a different purpose, right? A different blueprint on what their light language does, how it is of service, right? How it's serving themselves, how it's serving others. People are going to, some people can read the written light language, right? The codes that come through that are symbols. Some people can write them. Some people speak it. Nowadays, what used to be called spontaneous kriyas within the Shakti tradition or spontaneous mudras are now, in the last probably 10 years, called light language. So the beauty of that is that really harkens back to the ancient feminine tradition, right, of embodiment and of the Kundalini awakening that is now ascension. They're all part and parcel because everything is unifying, right? So everything is just a facet, right, of the same diamond. It's all the same. So, and some people do all of those, right? Some people can read, can write, can all of that. Can interpret. Some people can interpret, like what I say. I don't know what I'm saying, but I've had other people who have interpreted it, and maybe they're interpreting it for their soul presence. I don't know, right? And these are part of the mystery. We don't get to have all the answers. And I don't think we're supposed to have all the answers because we are living in the living mystery. Where if we think we know it all, then not only do we move out of the mystery, but we kind of become more closed in our thinking rather than remain completely open and curious with a sense of wonder to the amazing world unfolding within us and the higher dimensions of, our world and worlds. All right. I'm going to leave it there, and I'm certainly open to any other questions. I hope that this supported you who was asking me these questions, and thank you so much for them. Any other follow-ups, or again, any classes, let me know. I'd love it. All right. And if you liked this, and if you want to subscribe, that would be awesome to my channel. I'd appreciate it. All right. Bye. Many blessings. Much love.